Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. Let's start with Miami, Baltimore for a lot of reasons. You add an extra week into the regular season of the NFL. I was not a fan of it. I have defended Thursday night football, though I don't think a lot of veteran players are ready to go. But here we are, teams falling apart. Miami, Nick Chubb probably out for the playoffs. Tua banged up. Howard, the defensive back, banged up. Here you go to last weekend, you feel pretty good. Baltimore's a little like San Francisco. They pound you. You come out of these games against the Niners or the Ravens, and I look at what is Miami today. They're going to be a wild card team, a real possibility of that. What to you, because I got thoughts on Dallas, just isn't close to the team that I thought. They should have lost to Detroit. What's Miami to you today?
Well, to me, I think they're a one-and-done team in the playoffs. Assuming they lose to Buffalo, which I'm sure you and I know I'm going to take Buffalo next week.
Yes.
And that's a team that's, obviously trending in the right direction. What sucks for Miami is they were having an awesome season for them.
Yeah.
Right. They're not like some powerhouse franchise over the last couple decades. And now it all comes unravel. And here's the thing. What has been their downfall when they've played good teams? Now, they did take care of business last week against Dallas, right? After Dak led them on that drive, they drove and they won the game. But today they were manhandled. Like that was a difference in class. And here's the thing with the, not winning the division. Do you like this team on the road in Kansas City?
No.
Do you like this team on the road in Buffalo? Like, this is not even an indictment on McDaniel and Tua. It's the history of the franchise. Right. They don't play well in weather. Like, listen, Kansas City's comfortable playing these 25-20 games. They'll do it all day long. And say, come on into Arrowhead, you're not going to beat us. Because that's got the 3-6 written all over it, right? Or however the seeding breaks down. Now, maybe, I guess, depending on how it breaks, could they – I guess if they lost next week, they wouldn't even be the 5. They'd be the 6 seed. So you'd be looking at going on the road in Kansas City. And I don't think there's a soul that's going to pick them. And they would be, a one-and-done team, which sucks because they really did make some good strides. I do think big picture – you got Fangio, you keep improving the roster. Like, they're not going away, but like physicality is a huge part of this league. And the Niners, who are clearly one of the more physical teams, got shoved around by the Ravens. And today didn't that look like Alabama playing Cal Poly or something?
You know what, John, think about this. In the last 20 years, who has dominated the NFL? New England, cold weather team. Baltimore's been a great team, cold weather outdoor team. San Francisco, it's the Bay Area, but it's chilly. You get some in the late in the year, it's windy and chilly. You don't think about the warm weather teams. Brady goes down to Tampa quickly, but there is an argument that the Philadelphias and the Baltimores and the New Englands, and I'm not saying warm weather dome teams can't be really, really good. But we've watched Buffalo, Cincinnati, Kansas City, New England, and Baltimore in the AFC. And the Steelers have underperformed the last 10 years. They've still been viable. So I do think there is something. I mean, John, there's no question. I live in California. When I go on the road, a 47-degree day, I'm like, get me out of here. What is going on? When you play in Miami, it's not a criticism. It's a reality. I just don't trust them on the road in January.
Well, think about two of the better organizations with Drew Brees and the Saints and Peyton Manning and the Colts over the last couple decades. Were not great outdoor teams, in the playoffs, right? They had to be in a confined environment to have their best opportunity. And they had Drew Brees and Peyton Manning, right? Just because the culture of your franchise, offensive cultures, both those two teams, right? Yeah. Look at Miami. And today was less about Miami. I didn't think they were going to win. Was much more to me about Baltimore, who now checks all the boxes of a Super Bowl level team. They have a Super Bowl winning coach. They have a quarterback who's going to win the MVP and is playing the best football of his career. I texted with a buddy who's on the staff after they kicked the Niners' ass, and he's like, I don't think people quite understand how good this defensive coordinator is. He's like a boy genius. He's pretty special.
Yeah.
And so they have incredible coaching, great talent, nailed some draft picks. I mean, Zay Flowers looks like Tyreek Jr. The personnel department has always been top notch. What happened last year? Trade for Roquan Smith, leading tackler in the NFL. They have guys on that defense on their front four that aren't sexy, huge. TJ Watt, JJ Watt, Nick Bosa. You don't even, beside Clowney, they're not famous group. They dominate. So, and that's always kind of been their thing up front, physicality. We know they can run the ball. Now Lamar's throwing like this. I think the pressure, I think the 2-1 seeds is Super Bowl or bust. Like anything less than a Super Bowl championship for the Niners or the Ravens is going to feel like a letdown. Now, you would say in the AFC, just playing Kansas City, who has championship medal. Buffalo, if they win with Josh Allen, they're going to be a tough out. It's still, to me, a little harder in the AFC than it will be for San Francisco. But I think Baltimore is clearly the heavy favorite right now.
Yeah, and I got to be honest with you. Whenever I see this on the internet, and I don't mind when fans do this. Not that my standard for fan is short for fanatic. So when fans want to get all fiery, I have no problem with it. But when I see the media do this stuff, if I want Baltimore, I'm really happy for Baltimore and Lamar Jackson. I had real doubts. He was skinny and ran too much. And my takeaway was, I don't know if this is going to work in the pros. If there was a secret to successful quarterbacks, then 77% of drafted quarterbacks round 1 through 7 wouldn't fail. Like nobody knows. I mean, outside of Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Elway, Marino, it's like you don't know. But I will say this. I think one of the things and I can explain it with Lamar, he was so magnificent stylistically and so unique that people just don't know what to do with players like that. I grew up with a player named George Gervin in the NBA. There's never been a player that played like him. The guy weighed, I swear to God, he weighed 150. He was 6'7". Everything was a finger roll. He was an all-star for years. But he never got listed among the greats because nobody played like George Gervin. He was this 6'7", wiry, small school, odd game. And Alex English led the 80s in the NBA in scoring. Didn't jump. Angle jump shooter. He didn't make top 75 team. He led the 80s in scoring. Yeah. So when you get these players that are so unique, we don't know what to do with Lamar. But we have to acknowledge this. He just keeps getting better. He's clearly coachable, and he is the soul of that team. He's the opposite of Russ. His teammates love him. I mean, they love him.
He, to me, for a guy now who's worth $200 million, still has a humility around him, and there's a connectivity to him clearly in the locker room that I think Jalen showed last year. That you can't fake that. You either got it or you don't. It comes naturally to you. And like you said, this is why you draft on character, work ethic, and love of football, because that's how you improve. Like you don't improve, what happens in 6 months when you're not practicing in the offseason. He's gotten dramatically better. The other conversation on the internet that's laughable is like, I can't believe no one went after him. It's like, yeah, the Ravens were never letting him go.
Never.
It's one of those things like in the NBA with restrictive free agency. Why did no one make Austin Reeves an offer? Because the Lakers were going to match it. The Ravens weren't trading you Lamar Jackson, right? And clearly, here's the other thing. Young people, situations financially impact, mentally we get impacted by all sorts of things. And clearly last year threw him off the contract. This is a business though. And I'm sure we'll talk about Sean Payton and Russell. Like we're talking a lot of money. So sometimes they get kind of contentious. Last year was weird. They figured it out. Everything's good. And not only this year, don't you feel just for the next several years, he's kind of come into his own a lot like Mahomes did several years ago, Josh Allen. I mean, he's one of the best players in recent memory.
I remember when Aaron Rodgers was in his prime and Vegas said he was worth 11 points a game. Yeah. If you look at the Ravens with Lamar, 28 a game, without him, 17. So he's worth 11 points. He is Aaron Rodgers in his prime. And what I like about him, whereas Aaron's sort of a finesse player, he throws it off his feet, throws it away if he doesn't like to play. Lamar has a weird physicality about him. Like, he kind of likes to get hit. He's kind of physical, and I think players feed off it.
I think he is so much better than he was when he won the MVP and kind of took the league by storm. He's so much under control. Yes. For a running quarterback, he feels much more poised now when he's scrambling around because he's scrambling, looking to throw. I also think he's always kind of had a knack. When I was in Philly, Michael Vick was kind of reckless. He didn't know how to slide. He went into a lot of contact and got mollywopped. Lamar's pretty good at like kind of hitting the ground on some runs. He's not trying to be a hero, and no one questions that. Like, it's like, Lamar, we got to pick your spots. You're too valuable. And he's just come into his own with his talent. He's going to have a lot of pressure though in the playoffs because it's now home games.
Yeah.
He hasn't had much, postseason success. This team's built to win big. It's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
He's gonna, they kind of get 2 weeks now. This game doesn't mean anything next week. You get the 2-week rest, a lot like the 49ers. And it's everyone's looking at them like, if you're not in the Super Bowl, it's going to be a major, major disappointment.